Cult boyfriend. I just finished Gilmore Girls season two, first time watch. Let's analyze it. Let's explore it. Let's get deep into Stars Hollow. So, first off, I would like to say that the chemistry is unbelievable on this show. Everyone has really stellar chemistry. They all vibe with each other incredibly well, no matter what the context is. Of course, Lauren Graham and Alexis Bledel have legendary chemistry. Like they pull it off so well that you don't think about it. Like I don't even know if I thought to mention it in the my first season analysis video, but you definitely have to praise it. It's just so effortless. It feels so natural, and yeah, it's great. The anchor of the show being the relationship between a mother and a daughter, it pulls it off incredibly well, but the chemistry is beautiful. It allows for these slow burns that really are incredibly visceral, or at least palpable, right? I love Luke and Lorelai, the will they, won't they slow burn that would not work if Scott Patterson and Lauren Graham did not have the chemistry that they do. So first and foremost, I need to praise, and I couldn't praise it enough, the chemistry, because I don't think I did in the first season, which is kind of wild. My favorite character, yes, is Paris, and I think it will be Paris until the end of time, until the end of the show, because Liza Weil. I still don't think I'm allowed to say her name. You know what? I'm not allowed to say really too many people's names on this show because if it's not Weil, um, M- Milo Ventimiglia, even Amy Sherman Palladino, I don't know. Just know that I love all of these people, and I'm sorry for butchering names. Paris is a beautiful character, but I've reserved some time for some Paris character study. Uh, a little bit further on in this video, I will devote a whole slot of time to Paris and to Chilton and to Tristan. By the way, I made a video called The Beautiful Ruins of Tristan Dugray. Definitely check that out because it's really good. All right, I did a whole character study of Chad Michael Murray's run on this show, and it's definitely worth watching. But I'll cover parts of that in this video as well. I just won't go into it too much. Yes, Paris is still my favorite character. Emily Gilmore is, I'm really warming up to Emily. Favorite character is Paris, second favorite, Emily. I love those two characters. They share archetypal similarities, so um, I don't know. Do what you will with that information. That's just my taste. I like that a lot. I guess I like girl boss characters. But there's a secret devastation and alienation to them. Well, not so secret Paris, but once again, we'll get to Paris soon. So once again here, Stars Hollow, Gilmore Girls as a whole is devoted to both deconstructing and celebrating the screwball comedy, sex comedy without the sex, right? A Frank Capra world. I love that Paris does say that Stars Hollow is so wholesome that even Frank Capra would vomit, would throw up at the sight of the putrid pureness. Um, Yes, it's a screwball comedy, and every single character is working through tropes to reach these kind of peaks of new sincerity and transcend from there. And season two does a wonderful job at that. I'd say season two is it's just as good as season one while having more flaws within it. You get Capra Lubitsch, Lyson, you get Mr. Deeds, It Happened One Night, you get Easy Living and The Devil and Miss Jones. But that is kind of like a framework for the early 2000s. And you do have to ask the question of like, what's the purpose of investigating the screwball comedy and celebrating it at this time period? And I think it definitely has to do with a certain kind of it's commercial, but it's still a radical sort of feminism that we are dealing with here. We're going to the very tropes of femininity, to the very archetypes and symbols that have come to, I mean, normalize and be actualized. The cinematic symbols of the idealized form of womanhood, of women. And we were able to investigate, like Claudette Colbert and Jean Arthur through, Lauren Graham and Alexis Bledel and Liza Weil. We're able to do some investigations here because there is something to them. One of my um, kind of criticisms of the first season was that I like that you built this world, this Stars Hollow. I like that I feel like I'm living in a screwball comedy, and the general awkwardness of our characters allow them to transcend these kind of limited feminine stereotypes or archetypes to reach these peaks of new sincerity. Like, I do really appreciate that. But I remember saying that, like, what I want now is a wrecking ball. Like Donald O'Connor and Singing in the Rain, you had to show him dance on the floor before you showed how we could dance on the wall. Like, you have to do the first thing before you deconstruct it or subvert it, right? And I said, you need a wrecking ball. And my idea of a wrecking ball was something of a bad boy, and I was kind of criticizing the show because Tristan Dugray and Dean, these aren't like really bad boys. We'll get to Tristan in a moment. He tried to be one, but it was extremely contrived. This show needed a wrecking ball to kind of upset Stars Hollow in a way at its core. And well, it gave that to me in Jess, didn't it? Milo Milo Ventimiglia. Fuck names. I'm calling him Milo. Um, and Jess is such a cool character. I love Jess, and yes, some true chemistry there. Some amazing chemistry between Jess and Rory. It is incredible. I just finished the season finale where they kiss at Sookie's wedding. Oh my God. Like that was like, whoa, 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 whoa. That's good. That's so good. That was meaningful. And that was awesome. And yeah, yeah, Jess is actually like a bad kid. He's like the Artful Dodger. He's Holden Caulfield. He's a J.D. Salinger character in perpetuity, just wreaking existential dread all over Stars Hollow with his angst-ridden, nihilistic, self-destructive appeal, and it is quite an appeal. He's like such a handsome kid, and I love his character. I love what his character means for Luke, and I love that Luke is always protecting him, because we do investigate like Luke's concept of family, and I think that family in the early 2000s was a dying sort of concept. Conceptually, it was in its death throes. I think that's why Gilmore Girls is pretty important, and this is the only kind of relationship that we really get between like two men in the same family, because while the show is celebrating, championing, and kind of reinventing what it means to be a mother and a daughter, what it means to be best friends, what it means to be women in this familial unit, its view of men is pretty interesting through Jess, because both of these men are incredibly defensive and absolutely insecure. They just try to hide it, but they hide it in such an awkward and clumsy way that it's the only thing you could ever see. You could only see their insecurities and their sensitivities. And it's these two men who don't exactly know nor want to be super vulnerable with each other, but the smallest moments, there's more nuance to masculine familial relationships. I think, as uh, posited by the second season of Gilmore Girls, because there's a lot of tenderness between Jess and Luke, but in order to really find it and really embrace those feelings, you have to look really hard, because these aren't two characters that are going to run up and like hug each other or even say something nice, or when they do nice things for each other, they don't admit that they did. They want nothing but the best for each other. I know that that has to be the case, but men, that's just not the way that they operate in a certain kind of society, specifically within a screwball framework. And I think that's one of the things that um Amy Sherman Palladino is not necessarily interested in deconstructing. She's interested in destroying and leveling, because there's so much nuance to this relationship, and it fascinates me. And what does Jess offer to Rory that Dean doesn't offer her? Passion, something unexpected, something intelligent too. I'm not saying that Dean is an idiot, but Dean has never read Howl in his life, you know? And that's a superficial kind of quality to judge a romantic interest by. But when you are 16 or 17, that's when you definitely have the license to be as superficial as possible when it comes to experimenting with who your heart chooses to be affectionate towards. And this show really does like elevate itself romantically because I think Rory's fighting it as much as she can. She won't admit this. She's fighting it as much as possible. And when she kissed her in the episode I just saw, when she kissed him in the episode I just saw, it was like some involuntary bodily action. Like she didn't think, she just did it because she's drawn to him like a moth to an open flame. And it's kind of like beautiful. It's a really cool relationship. And I can't wait to see that explored more because there's a lot to Jess and there's even more to Rory. And Rory is another incredibly insecure kid. I mean, every kid in this show is insecure in their own idiosyncratic way. They just have really desperate ways of expressing it, which make me feel really sad because it's all about not trying to express it. It's all about trying to conceal your insecurities, which just kind of magnify them for the viewer, which speaks to Gilmore Girls and their characterization and the writing just being so perfect. And of course, the acting being so spot on that nearly every role here is legendary. I love when Jess shows up in the town for the first time, that music kicks and he's looking around at this picturesque idyllic Stars Hollow, and it's just a, this is hell, this is hell. And I was like, finally someone is realizing that this isn't normal, that this shouldn't even be desired. You know, this is fucking Pleasantville, bro. I sympathize with Jess. I wouldn't be able to vibe in that town. No, 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 no. Jess is doing better than I would in that town. Incredible performance by Milo. So many great parts featuring him interacting with this town. I loved seeing him meet new people. I'm like, oh, he hasn't met Paris before. This is gonna be exciting. And yeah, they end up like debating the beat writers and Paris. Oh my God, I would love to get into arguments with her, like calling Kerouac like the most self-obsessed writer in the world. And every man is the same. They're into Bukowski and they will never read Jane Austen. And of course, Jess had a really cool comeback to that. I'm like, I've read Jane Austen, and I think Bukowski would. I think she'd really like Bukowski. I I don't know about that, Jess, but it's the right thing to say in that situation for sure. Speaking of Paris, let's just go to Chilton. At Chilton, Gilmore Girls and Amy Sherman Palladino do their most interesting work. The most interesting postmodern exercises are performed at the Chilton School. Harris and Tristan both embody a certain kind of expression, of like the most amplified expression possible of with Tristan, it is archetypal expectations, and with Paris, it's societal expectations. Tristan, in the video that I made, The Beautiful Ruins of Tristan Grey, he is so upset, he is so aggravated that he is acting contrived, he is acting like a postmodern brat in some pointless, childish revolt against circumstance, against the fact that he is leaving the show and he can't fulfill his postmodern Romeo narrative. He can't follow it through. He was there for the dress rehearsal and was forced out of it by circumstance. And Tristan is really mad about that, really mad that his actor is leaving, really mad that he has to say goodbye before he truly ever said hello. Tristan is rejecting the archetypal expectations. He's rejecting the narrative. He refused it. And it, episode 9 of season 2, Runaway Little Boy, Tristan Gray's only appearance in this season and his final one, I think is one of the most fascinating pieces of teen drama I've ever seen, and I think one of the best examples of postmodern pop art that's available. that we have. It's masterful. It's masterfully done. I've seen things like this before, but not done as well here. To have a character lash out at the meta narrative of his own context, like to just lash out and refuse to go quietly to go quietly into that good night. He rejected the narrative and he refused to make peace with circumstance. And he left angry and aggravated and still affectionate towards the source of his narrative pains. And he had to leave the show. So Tristan at Chilton um, was being hounded by expectations of his own archetype that he wasn't able to fulfill, that he wasn't able to meet head on, and he was cast out. That's Tristan. Paris, not necessarily against the meta narrative. That's why I think that Tristan Dugray is the most fascinating character I've run into so far on this show, and it's not almost, it has nothing to do with his original intent. Like, Tristan in season one is a jerk who has some tenderness to him, and I love Chad Michael Murray. But season two, what they did with his exit, that's where he gets completely fascinating and puts everything else into true perspective of a waste. And he knew it was wasteful. And he refuses to accept the fact that his narrative is complete. Paris has more practical concerns. Um, He's not a character who is focused or driven or determined to upset the status quo of the narrative itself. She doesn't care about the meta narrative. She cares about getting into Harvard. She cares about herself. She cares about Paris Geller. Paris Geller cares about Paris Geller. But of course, she's a secretly tender individual who definitely cares about Rory Gilmore as well and has a secret loneliness to her. And she's probably the most alienated person on the show while being the most seemingly focused and driven and most likely to be successful in the future. She doesn't really have true friends, and outside of Tristan, she hasn't expressed romantic interest in anybody because I think that she's afraid to accept the fact that no one is romantically interested in her. She feels like, I think she feels infinitesimal, and she's making up for how small she truly feels by trying to be as large a presence as possible. And my heart goes out to people like Paris Geller. Chilton is a fascinating place because we are dealing with I mean, since it is a teen drama and it's a postmodern teen drama and it's made in the early 2000s, we are able to be as hysterical as possible with the emotions of these teenagers. And at Chilton, there's a certain kind of raw expectation that presents itself in a theatrical and contrived way for all parties because these kids have definitely been brought up in a world of mannerisms and taught the choreography of etiquette and upper class existence. So when those types of people either reject a narrative or try to ignore their self-hate and their alienation like Paris, there's a sophistication available to engage with that's not normally apparent with kids from other backgrounds. I don't think that Jess has this depth to him, and I do love Jess. I don't think that Lane has this depth to her, and I do like Lane a lot. I want them to do something more with her, but from what I've got, it's fine. It's not really great though, but it is fine. I do like Lane a lot. There is a bit more of like a juxtaposition here because I did mention last time they're not really interested in investigating class or social stratification. But they did that in the very first episode of the second season when Dean goes to actually meet um, Rory's grandparents. And right away, her grandfather is so rude to him in a very classist sort of way. Well, I mean, I guess in a deliberately and overtly classist manner, it's very gross, but it's something that I wanted to see because I felt like you're kind of sanitizing that by way of the screwball comedy, whereas even in a screwball comedy, like It Happened One Night, definitely a Capra movie would recognize the reality of these different worlds of American existence. And I was waiting for Gilmore Girls to do that, and they finally did in the second season. They're not devoted to investigating those things, but I'm glad that Dean being continually ridiculed by Rory's grandfather, I'm glad that that happened because I needed to see it, or else I couldn't believe what I was seeing. That would have been the most fantastical element of Gilmore Girls. It would have been where I would not be able to suspend my disbelief for too long. And they even bring that feeling back, that that plot line back when Dean buys her a new car and her and Rory's grandfather doesn't believe it can work and has it checked a million fucking times until he finally believes Dean. And I guess they begrudgingly accept the other's presence. Um, so class and social stratification is investigated. It's not investigated harshly, but it's at least recognized and represented, um, which was absent from the first season. It is interesting that Jess destroys that car. James Dean, James Dean wannabe, destroys that car. And there are these like poetic symbols of Jess not being able to organically find a passion for himself or something. He has to steal it from others. Everything he got in life, he probably stole, and that is also love. And he has stolen Rory. Um, and he's done it through a series of these tokenizations of young love. He takes Rory's bracelet that Dean made for her in the first season. He takes it, he gives it back to her when he realizes what it was and what it truly represented. But that's still a tokenization of the love that Dean had for her. And then Dean bought her a car, which is a huge token of their love, of his commitment to her. And Jess destroys it. Jess is not interested in these tokens, in these empty symbols, in crystallizing a girl, right? I don't think so. I think that's why I don't think he deliberately mishandles the symbols of Dean's affection. Sometimes he does it without even knowing that he's doing it, like with the bracelet, but he does it anyway. And to work this into the poetic language of Gilmore Girls, kind of like trying to liberate Rory from this strange, tokenized and plastic, or at least this life of display that is Stars Hollow. Everyone is so theatrical. It's like everyone's putting on a play and everyone's a player and everyone's an actor and everyone's just likable and quirky and silly and witty and fun and acerbic. Jess can see through that. I don't know if he's conscious of the fact that he's seeing through it, but he is destroying the performative nature of Rory's ideation of what love can be. And it's by destroying some of these artifacts of Dean's love for her that, or defiling them or whatever you want. He's corrupting them for sure. He's taking the mystification away. He's demystifying it. He's demystifying Stars Hollow, and he's demystifying the tokenization of love. And that's really cool, and that's extremely postmodern. But I don't think that Jess knows that he's doing that. The thing about the kids at Chilton is that I feel like there's a meta-contextual layer to all of them. I definitely feel like Tristan in his final episode was speaking outside of himself in a way, or at least I felt like it was the Romeo archetype that the early 2000s has no use for, being given enough autonomy to realize that if he's a victim of any tragedy, it's not of love, but of failed expectation, and that upsets him greatly. I think that Paris certainly understands. She is probably the most performative character in the whole show because we get real Paris every so often, and real Paris is perfect. Real Paris is adorable and awkward and full of a sensitivity. We see real Paris when she's like, "Oh, oh, really? Really? You like it? Or I can stay?" And then it's gone. The rest of the time, she's a character because the kids at Chilton, they have to be performative as they've been rehearsing all their lives, and they'll probably never stop rehearsing until the day that they die. They've been rehearsing for galas, for debutante balls. They are stuck in performance. And every so often Paris breaks out of it, and you see that core inside of her, and it's a beautiful core. And I love Paris so much, and I want to see more of it, but I don't want it to be cracked open completely. It's a slow burn in every conceivable way for Gilmore Girls, not only with the romances, but with the interiority, especially of Paris. But with Paris, less is more. Um, because I love her to death, and I'm constantly searching out those moments of true openness from her, which do come, and then they leave just as quickly. Paris rules. I would start watching Gilmore Girls literally like the week that I switched from coffee to tea for my stomach. Mm. I have like Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis, and that I knew I had to quit coffee for years, and I finally did it. This is so off topic. What else do I have to talk about, though? Let's see if I took any notes down and helped myself out. No, I didn't. Let's do some criticisms. I stopped caring about Lorelai near the end of the season. I stopped caring. I was fooling around with the philosophical concept of doubles, of you can't hate Rory, but like Lorelai, or vice versa, because they are the same character. But guess what? They're not. They aren't at all. I think that Rory is is waking up to a truthful existence. I think that Lorelai is just kind of aggravating now. The stuff with Rory's dad, like, please tell me that's it. Please tell me I'm done. I don't. It's so boring. Every time he shows up, it's the most boring fucking episode ever, and he was in this season quite a bit. Lorelai just got really aggravating near the end, and I stopped really investing emotionally in the stories the adults were having, and because the teens were just stealing the show. Um, the young characters were just running away with the show for me. And every time Lorelai would show up, I'd be like, wow, I mean, this is probably part of the point. She's acting more immature and more holier than thou than these arrogant and unknowing kids are. Um, Lorelai was really aggravating for me near the end. Started strong though, started really strong. So I hope that season three, the writers are like, hey, let's not take it in this fucking aggravating direction, and let's never see Rory's dad again, because your cold boyfriend is gonna swallow a bullet if he has to sit through another episode of Lorelai making out with him. It's terrible, terrible shit. Melissa McCarthy is someone who I haven't talked about yet, and I've been meaning to. She doesn't really get to do anything profound ever, but I didn't know she started off on Gilmore Girls. I've just been annoyed by her as a movie star because I don't like the comedies that she makes. I never have found her funny, except for like one part of This Is 40. Like her scene in it is very good. I didn't know that she started off here, which also means I didn't know that she had perfect comedic timing, that she is an extraordinary comedian. Like she really is. I guess it did translate to Hollywood, right? Because she's had a very successful career, but um, I wasn't able to appreciate her comedy until I watched Gilmore Girls, and now I'm like, I get it, and I really like it. So great on you, Melissa McCarthy. Sookie's a cool character. Um, Not a whole lot to talk about, but that's not a criticism against the character. There are characters that you need to be reliably shallow in a way. And that's to me Sookie. If there are complications with Sookie, they are investigated in their totality in a single episode, and then we move on. At least so far, which is fine. That's totally fine, especially when we have um, postmodern brats like Tristan do Gray and like postmodern Queen of the Damned, like Paris Geller and postmodern wrecking balls like Jess Danes. We don't need any further complications because this brain right here is being all used up by those three. I'm looking forward to season three. I'm pretty sure that my boy Adam Brody is going to show up and blow my fucking mind. I love Adam Brody. We covered the OC on the channel, so you should know I think the kid's basically a genius. So I'm interested to see how he fits into Stars Hollow. I definitely want to see more Paris. If this was just a show about Paris, I would watch it. Well, of course I would watch it. That's a stupid statement, Zach. You're watching a show where she's not the main character and you love her. Of course you'd watch a show where she was the main character. I'm an idiot sometimes. If she was the main character of a show, it would probably be my favorite show. I love this kind of character, and she can definitely handle more. I want more Paris. I want Paris 24/7. That's what I want from Gilmore Girls. I know I won't get that because that's an unreasonable demand, but I want a lot more of her. Because that's where I'm most fascinated with what I'm seeing. And her performance is the best out of everyone's. Like her performance is better than anyone else's performance by a landslide too. In my opinion, I think that there's so much pathos to Paris that it's so unreal, and she can drive me to tears when she drops the performance for a second and acts like this tender girl that I haven't spent much time with. Like there's so much to Paris, and I can't wait to see more of her. I better see more of her in season three, which isn't to say I didn't get a lot of her in season two. I did. I'm a junkie. I'm a junkie for Paris Geller. I'm a Chilton junkie. I want way more Chilton time because I love Madeline. I love Paris's two droogies. I always have. I think they're really cool. I want more Chilton all the time. But I think that's it for me. Thank you for watching my video. I will be back in 1 week to talk about season three of Gilmore Girls, which I am enjoying. Real talk, yeah, Lorelai got aggravating for me near the end, and her shit made me so bored during the last 3 or 4 episodes. So fucking bored with Lorelai. And if I'm starting to become so bored and aggravated with like the main character of a show so early, I don't know how I'm gonna operate. But all of these supporting kids, man, like I love them. So okay, keep it coming. Keep it coming, Gilmore Girls. Where you lead, I will follow.